Mm, Everybody is in here. All right, guys. Well, happy Friday. Thank you for taking your time to join today's training. Basically, today we're going to be going over. I know Brian and Bruce have probably recently mentioned us talking about solidifying enrollments in cases and then deductions. I wanted to spend a lot more time on the solidifying cases, and because that's really the step before deductions, and so I wanted to kind of take us back a little bit on the initial process of closing 125 paperwork and what that verification process looks like from my end, from home office's
Home
end,
offices
and,
and
and just getting some background
I'm just
noise.
getting some background.
From home offices in. And so I think that if we all can kind of have a better understanding of what that looks like from everyone's perspective, I think it'll help us become more efficient in the process of approving 125s to getting a franchise number to then being able to enroll. Okay. And so when we solidify the 125 paperwork, I know you know, sometimes when we're going through and doing the presentation and then we get to the actual close, we have tendencies sometimes to rush through the paperwork because we don't want to lose the close, right? So just want to highlight several points on the section 125 that I look at. And then we'll go into the home office perspective. And then ADs, I still want you guys to really be attentive because there are several aspects of this training that are also going to help coach you guys up on how to handle certain scenarios a little differently. And so you guys know, I spent a lot of time yesterday talking to several ADs, and I got on a call with home office and kind of uh, communicated both from the field standpoint to home office's standpoint, and then really came up with solutions as how we can better navigate this process together moving forward. So just know there was time taken in researching so we can kind of get real live scenarios I can show you guys toward the end of the training. All right. So, guys, you get in closing 125, awesome work. You guys get the paperwork, you get the close. It comes to me. Now, when I'm looking at a couple things, when it comes into Epic, the tag, I pull up the paperwork and I do see on the benefits fact sheet is the first and foremost thing that I look at. Are you the decision maker for the benefits? So I know the worksite paperwork says decision maker. I'm really looking to see the actual title of the person that signed the paperwork. So whether that be the owner, if it's a GM that has you're presenting to, I always ask additional questions because we have lost several accounts before where GMs have signed or office managers have signed. And so when I think decision maker, I think owner. If there's co-owner involved, I want to ensure that at least both owners have been presented to. If they haven't, sometimes you have a lot of owners that are hands-on in the business and they do delegate a lot of that stuff to your administrator, HR, or the GM. Understand that as long as they are aware of the process and on board with it, that is when I want us to be able to confirm before we move forward on anything else. And so, billing benefits fact sheet, I look at that. And when I say I look at title, I look at the title that is listed underneath the payroll deduction agreement page. Reason for that is because that's where I always sometimes see discrepancies where people list, hey, this person is the owner on the benefits fact sheet. And they'll even sometimes tag me and say, is the owner decision maker? And then when I scroll down to the signature, it says office manager or it says GM. And so I screenshot right away and kind of just question and kind of get some clarity as to who is this person that's authorizing and do they actually have the decision making benefits? And a, um, how do I say, a lot of your smaller businesses that, 15, 20 man case, sometimes they don't have HR departments. They're smaller businesses. You just have an owner, a bookkeeper, or somebody that helps with accounts payable, accounts receivable, even employee onboarding. And so with that, we just definitely want to make sure that the person is on board that has the capability of doing deductions paying the invoice every single month. And so that's what I'm looking at on the payroll deduction authorization agreement. So then, after looking and making sure that we've gotten the decision maker approved on board, then now we're looking into the actual billing information sheet. And I am seeing in the top section is the biggest thing that I look at. And that is everybody's name, contact information, and email address listed. I we have done such a phenomenal job since we've been running the worksite contest, guys. January 12th, we've closed 56 cases. 56 cases. That's not even a full month, which is super awesome. I know y'all are out there grinding. I know the results are being generated, and I mean, we've got really, really good momentum going this first quarter of the year, which I'm excited about. Right. I know you guys are also excited. And I also know in this process of presenting and closing, there is excitement because like, hey, it could be your first close. I know sometimes we're struggling a little bit to get some closes. Sometimes we've had several presentations and several closes where we're just trying to rush through the process. So in this portion is where I always see sometimes agents having to go back and, which creates extra work for you guys to go back and get more contact information in regards to telephone numbers, email addresses for all the people that are involved in the process. Okay. So there's the decision maker line. That is the line where home office is going to be calling and verifying and speaking to that person to do the verification call. Okay. And usually that person is the one that has signed and initialed on the payroll deduction agreement page that I just showed you on the previous slide. So more contact information, the better. Sometimes the owner is not always the best person to verify a roster. I know home office does allow the decision maker to at least verify, like, hey, are they good with this process? And then any additional information, like in this example, John Smith, they would have to speak to John Smith to verify that they're on board with the process. If John Smith is super busy and it's like, hey, I don't have time for this, like, you guys are gonna have to give us a call back. Sometimes Becky Smith, listed on this example, who is listed as a payroll contact person, she's the person that probably provided the roster. She may be a better person that can go through and take a 5-minute phone call with home office to list that. So in this scenario, you would probably put John Smith as the DM / Becky Smith. So home office can probably go through and do the verification call with Becky also. And then on the third portion where it says payroll company or accountant, I know this is also on the benefits fact sheet, but always don't leave any room for guesswork, guys. If there is a payroll company, accountant, let's put their contact information all the way out, because if you don't put it, I am going to ask for it at some point before being able to approve applications. Okay. When there is a third person involved, this is where my line of questioning gets a little bit deeper, because I want to be able to ask these questions to see if you guys have these answers, understanding everybody's role in the process. So I want everybody to get their pen out, take a picture, screenshot. If you're driving, kind of like pull over real quick, skirt, take a screenshot, and let's make sure y'all understand that these are the questions that I ask when I'm reviewing 125 paperwork. And for doing this for 12 years, we have lost accounts, 10,000 accounts, 20,000 accounts. I think one I am about also, I think it was almost 30,000 that we lost in this step of the process because one of these items wasn't clarified. And so these line of questioning isn't to, micromanager. It's really from learning of us losing accounts in the past. And so the very first one is, who's the owners, and are they all on board? That's the very first one. Okay. I've already touched on that one. The second one is, who will enter the employee deductions into payroll? So in the previous example, we had Becky listed as the payroll, and then we had the payroll company information listed. Well, who is entering it in deductions into the actual payroll system? And there are so many times, guys, in the deduction process every month. Like, I have group chats right now just in this last week where Destiny has been making verification calls to our accounts to verify that the deductions have gotten started. And we didn't deliver it to the actual person that's entering into payroll. And we missed the first payroll this week. And so I'm constantly having to get involved in those because we just didn't have clarity as to who is entering them into payroll. Because if we know who's entering them into payroll, then we know who we should be delivering it to. Yes, in this example, we would deliver to Becky, but at the same time, we would also email them over to the payroll company, pick up the phone, call the payroll company. Hey, we just emailed these over. I'm sitting here with Becky. I'm here at the business. If they're like, hey, we don't have authorization to speak with you, that's fine. I got Becky right here. Let me put her on speaker. You get the payroll admin on the phone. Hey, just want to make sure you guys got the deductions. Any questions? Is there anything we can do to help in the process? Okay, great. Right. So then that's when we have known that we've delivered them to the person into payroll. And we know that that is the step where we've done our delivery. Destiny's job is to ensure that the deductions have gotten started. So she may follow up with a payroll company. She may sometimes have to get Becky involved to kind of help get that verified. If we are having a difficult time getting somebody on the phone to verify deductions have started, we'll reach out to you guys and say, hey, can you guys help in this step of the process? Just to ensure deductions have started. Because remember, the delivery of the deductions is one step of the process. Verifying that the deductions have started is a completely different thing. That's the second step. Okay. Question number three, who will be paying the invoice every month? There were 3 sets of 125 paperwork today that I had approved for the verification process, but there was nothing in there that told me who was paying the invoice. Terry's team does a really, really good job of putting in there, hey, spoke to this payroll company, verified that they will be handling the deductions in the deduction process, presented to owner or presented to office manager, and the owner was present briefly, gave the authorization for office manager to handle everything. Payroll company handles the deductions, and bookkeeper is going to be paying the invoice. So those are the things that when you submit the 125 into Epic and you tag me, please don't tag me and just say, please approve. ADs, GAs, SAs, as you guys are going through, please make sure that these questions are answered if there are additional people in the process. That prevents from me giving you a phone call. It prevents from me saying, hey, congrats on a close, couple questions, and I list these questions. And then I'll say approve. I'm going to go ahead and approve for the verification process to get started because I don't want to delay that anymore. However, I'm not going to approve applications until these questions have been answered. In this previous past Monday, there was an example where I got applications. I went back to Epic and my questions weren't answered. And so they had to go ahead and get the account back involved and clarify the invoicing and the deduction process, which thank goodness everything was good to go. But just want to be certain we cross every hurdle that may potentially arise before we go in and write and enroll employees. When it comes to the reviewing the 125 packet, I'm trying to double check and make sure that the weekly premiums being deducted matches with the 445 billing, the 52 weeks. If it's biweekly, 26 weeks, I make sure that that matches with the 223 billing and that first payroll date. So let me get my little annotation here so you guys can kind of see. So I'll make sure that this aligns with the 445. And then I make sure that the biweekly is aligning with the 223 and that the date is entered here. I always see sometimes where this is marked and the date is not entered. And so that's instances that we cannot submit and send to home office because home office won't even process. Home office won't even process. I pushed one back today where the date of the business wasn't established. For the billing address and physical address of the zip codes and all of that information is not listed. Home office will also push back on it. So I ensure that the paperwork is completed entirely before I send it up to home office. Okay. Employee roster is a big thing now on that home office I'm seeing is pushing back on. So whenever there is an employee roster, a couple things, guys, and I want to make sure that you guys like write this down as we're going through and we're getting names and hire dates. So the roster has to be typed, signed, and there has to be a header. Sometimes we may not be able to provide like the actual image or logo of the business. That's fine. As long as you have the name of the business typed, the address, telephone number, that obviously qualifies as a business header also. Okay. But it's really just the header on the document. The employees' full names and then the month the day and the year that the employees were hired. I have worked field guides. I know how hard it is sometimes to get these rosters, especially for your larger accounts. Bookkeepers have the capability of pulling them from the payroll registers. Sometimes they don't. And so, like, if they're so busy, they're tied up, whatever the case may be, sometimes they will just give you the month and the year. If that's the case, you can just put the first on the roster, the first of the month, just to be able to, I mean, the month and the year, really the date um, they just are requiring. So it has to be on there now. Before we would be able to just do the month and the year, they're not accepting that anymore. So, with that being said, they also confirm that the employees are W 2 and work an average of 28 hours or more per week. Okay. So that is requirements from home office for employee rosters. And even for re-enrollments, guys, now they just did an audit on rosters and like rosters from 2025. I got emails on that, hey, this is not an actual roster. It's not typed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a year ago. So we'll work on that moving forward. But just also know that they are requiring this more now for re-enrollments. Okay. I am going to stop at the end for questions because I know that you guys probably will have several questions, especially when I get into the home office perspective, which is what we're transitioning to now. So, with the 125, before we get to um, what that looks like from home office's end, couple things for you guys is when it comes to you closing on 125 and getting rosters, getting the full set, before you leave the business, guys, we should always be setting the expectations for what comes next to the business. I know it's super exciting closing a case, y'all. I know it is. And the thing is sometimes we get so excited, we even forget to prepare the bookkeeper or the decision maker. Hey, you're going to get a phone call from our home office, and they're just going to verify the information on the everything that we just collected, right? Their verification now has changed. I want everybody to know this. They used to look at the billing information sheet and read off the information and just confirm with the person. Now it's open ended. So, what is the physical address? Is there a billing address? That is different now in the verification process. Yes, I do understand it takes more time, but for everybody out there, know that there was like $1 million fraud on this number. I think he was the number one agent 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I can't remember, but I mean, millions of dollars worth of annual premium by him coming up with fraudulent accounts. They weren't even real. And so the procedure and protocol at home office has definitely tightened up and changed. So I, in talking with Shelby, she made a really good point. She was like, hey guys, if you can, please communicate with the fields, with your teams that she's really big and she really pushes for her team, like teamwork with the field. And so, what I know sometimes is we get frustrated in the process of dealing with them because, yes, sometimes they are idiots and sometimes they're not seeing like little basic things that make sense. I understand that. But sometimes when we're communicating back with them, we want them on our side. We don't want to pick a battle and pick a fight with home office or representatives because I end up getting those emails from Shelby, and Shelby is the one person that has, and her team that has the leverage to put a stamp of approval on your paperwork to then generate a franchise for you to enroll to make paychecks. So they are on our side and not against us. And so that's the purpose of why I'm kind of wanting to paint this picture of what their expectations look like. And so that way we can all communicate better in the process. So with those changes that have recently occurred, probably within the last year, one of the things that I talked with a couple of AEDs about, and we all agreed, and even talking with the home office team, is recommending, and I want everybody to hear me on this. Once we set the expectations with the decision maker and we walk out of the business and you get in your car, do not pull out of that business. And I want you to pull your phone out and you're going to Google first the business name, the city and state to ensure the information on the web matches the paperwork. And I'm going to show you three examples when we get done with this. Because So what you're doing is what home office does to verify. If that information matches to the T with what is listed on the paperwork that you have in front of you, then you're good to go. Okay. However, if there are discrepancies, there are additional steps that you have to take before you pull out of that business. And the reason why I'm saying to do it right then and there is because the last thing you need is to change your whole entire route for a week just to go back out to this business you closed, just to get documentation or a picture and send it up to home office so you can get a franchise number. So I'm trying to make sure we overcome these hurdles before we leave the business. And so we need to make sure the name of the business matches, the address, and the telephone number on what's in Google. Okay. I will come up and show you guys a couple of tips as to how we can overcome that if they don't match. So just bear with me. But once everything matches and looks good, guys, that paperwork should be submitted in Epic before the end of that business day. So, agency directors, I want all of you out to hear me on this. This is for my ADs solely. You should be hammering and getting that paperwork before the end of the day closes. The reason why, it's very similar to enrolling a customer and preparing them for the QAC call. Gabriel does a really, really good job on him and his team. The moment they do a close, like I've been on quality calls where he's asked at the beginning of the call, he's asked in the middle of the call, and he's asked at the end of the call, like, we're not getting off of this call. Call me back, and we're not going to get off the phone until I get that 125 paperwork. And so asking him his feedback and the why behind that was because the close is fresh, right? They have the buy-in. I mean, everything is fresh. They're ready to go. We just prepared them for the process. So for us to sit on paperwork only delays the verification process for me to inspect the paperwork and then for home office to inspect the paperwork. And when we send it up to home office, guys, we have to give home office at least 24 hours to review the paperwork and to reach out to do the verification call. There is no more being able to submit paperwork today and enroll the very next day, next business day. That is not happening like it used to because of just the amount of volume that home office has. And so if you guys are sitting on paperwork for you all to pressurize me and then home office, because you had paperwork, but we just didn't get it to the AD in time for an enrollment tomorrow, that's on you guys. Okay. So I want there to be urgency moving forward from my ADs because when you guys close a case as agents, the first thing you do is probably what? Shoot a text message, take a picture, put it in the group chat. Like you're excited, you're going to celebrate that win. But my ADs, guys, that should be in your mind. Okay, awesome. We just got 2 closes today. Before you shut down in your day, if we've got the rosters and all the paperwork, we should be getting that paperwork before the end of the day. You could do it right then and there before you leave the business. You could do it during lunchtime, but getting it before the end of the day so that way it gets sent to Angela to review. And that way we can get it to sent to home office as soon as possible because you guys know the longer we delay and allow time for us to sit on paperwork and the verification, if there's a delay in that, there's a higher risk that those businesses end up canceling. We all know that when it comes to selling buyer's remorse, it applies the exact same when it comes to closing a worksite account. Okay. So I really want us to shift as ADs and as leadership is to create more urgency, getting that paperwork up more. And so then that way it doesn't bottleneck and we can go ahead and get the process started immediately. Okay. This is the last slide, and then I'm going to show you my examples and we're going to kind of close it up. So overcoming home office pushback. There are times where we have to provide documentation. I'll show you some examples where teams have done that before. Documentation is, for example, can be invoices, utility bills that show the actual address of the business. I know Alice Hill from Augusta, she sometimes will get the county registration, but an invoice or utility bill works. Confirm that with Shelby. The business card, sometimes we put on there if the telephone number doesn't match what's on Google. And home office only uses the business card to verify the telephone number. They do not use it to verify the address. And this, let me pause for a second, kind of go back. This is only if you have sat in your car and you Google the business and the business address doesn't match with what they gave you. Or let's just say the business name doesn't match the building that's popping up on Google. Okay, I'll show you some examples, but in those instances where it's not matching, these are the additional things you want to go ahead and cross off your list before you pull out of there, because that way you won't have to have a trip. That'll save you a trip from having to go back. So, providing documentation of an invoice, utility bill, business card, or a picture of the storefront with signage, because a lot of times, not a lot of times, sometimes where businesses have transitioned, have relocated, they've been acquired by a different company. If that recent transition has taken place, Google hasn't had enough time to populate and to update. And so taking pictures of the store frontage when home office Googles and shows, which I have an example of, they see the building, they don't see the updated business name. And so that right there, they need to be able to see, hey, that this is the updated picture that you guys actually have, and they use it because it's the same building, it's just different signage. So they know, hey, this picture is the most updated documentation, and Google isn't obviously currently accurate right now. Okay. So those are a couple of instances that will help us overcome the home office pushback. And then a couple of other things is tagging the representative directly when communicating. So for all my social media people out there that stay on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, whenever you see something and you're wanting a friend or you're wanting to communicate something, you at and then you type their name and it does like this hyperlink blue type deal where it actually tags their profile and notifies them the moment you hit submit on that post. So that communication applies the exact same in Epic, where we're tagging at, let's say, a representative. So remember, guys, when I hit submit approve on the paperwork, what it does is it sends an email to the home office worksite inbox, the verification line. And that is the at worksite approval is a general tag, and it goes into an inbox. And so then representative, then that gets divvied out amongst whoever's working it. Well, if 125 paperwork is being worked by Damon, who's the representative, and Damon is pushing back and saying, hey, I need an updated billing information sheet with the correct address. And you go through and you update that billing information sheet, and you just type in there, see attached, that doesn't prompt communication to that representative right away. You have to at Damon Tucker and then say on there, please see below. That automatically generates an email to Damon, not to the general inbox. And that communication goes directly to that person that's working your 125. Sometimes they're pushing back on stuff and you guys pick up the phone and give me a call and you're like, hey, what does this mean? I always say, I always recommend for you guys, pick up the phone and call the worksite number and ask to speak to them directly first to get clarity. If it's something that's really stupid that doesn't make sense, guys, get me involved first, because I can always get Shelby on the phone and her and I kind of talk it out a little bit. And 100% of those cases that I've had to get her on the phone have gotten approved. Okay. So just know that there is a way to overcome. I know sometimes it can be frustrating, but just knowing how to work through those hurdles will help us in the long run and get franchise numbers to enroll a whole lot faster. All right. So as we are winding down here, I did want to show you guys my examples, and I don't know why my screen is not shifting. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, there we go. 3 examples. First one is Southeast Dewatering. This is an account. When I'm looking here, let's go to the original pushback. I think I got more. Okay. So this was address shows a residential home. Business number is showing for a person, not the business. The top line has to be the direct business number, not just the best way to contact the DM, which is a really good point that Leslie made at the very top line of the billing information sheet. For the sake of time, let me just kind of get there and show you guys. Here at the top, right here, the phone number, that should be the business line that matches in Google, right? The representative is always going to call this number first. If they can't get them, then they're going to call the decision maker. When I'm calling I do the same exact thing. When Destiny's calling, she does the same exact thing. If we can't get them at the business, the next time we try them is on their direct telephone number. So those personal numbers, those cell phone numbers are always really good to put right there. So that way we have another means to be able to contact them. But in this scenario, in this example, we listed the business card to be able to show proof of the telephone number, which was on the actual business card. So here it is right here to show that it's an actual business and it has the address on here, right? So they were able to see that. And then what I ended up doing is I ended up searching just to kind of see from home office's perspective. Okay, Southeast Watering. That was the first thing I told you guys to do when you get in your car. Type the name, city, and state. Southeast Watering, New Smyrna, Florida. When I type that business name in, there is nothing when it comes to Google. Like there's no Google telephone number, address. I just see this picture here on MapQuest, whatever this is. They use MapQuest. Let me tell you guys what the sources they use while I'm pulling this up. The sources they use, not just they use Google mainly, they use Dot, they use state websites, they use Facebook pages, BB&T, and sometimes MapQuest if they have like to resort to it. But even when I click here, that picture, I don't know here's that picture. It's right here. But that didn't even pull up in Google, right? So here's what I then did. I then typed in just the business address. So when that happens for your smaller businesses, you then want to try to type in the address, which I did, 2291. I took away the whole entire business name and just did the address. And this is what pulls up on Google Maps. And you have to be able to see it for yourself to understand, okay, that makes sense as to why home office is flagging this account or giving pushback. Okay, here is the residential business. Well, after talking with the team, there's a warehouse right here. And they do like irrigation systems. So, guys, all of that work is out in the field. The only reason why they work out of a warehouse is because of materials, housing, all of that stuff. But here are the work trucks and here's the warehouse. Well, it still kind of it doesn't look like a business from Google Maps, right? It doesn't look updated. There's no signage. So that was a big red flag. So what did the what we ended up doing is we got a picture. This was before she got a picture from inside the warehouse looking out. And they had actually I think they took this picture while they were presenting and doing the 125. But in the warehouse, you see the trucks in the back, which were the white trucks that were in the front on Google Maps. You could see the two sliding doors in the warehouse. And you can see that, I mean, like he's even got the shirt going on with the business. So you can see that this is obviously a business operating out of a warehouse. And so they ended up approving because we were able to find, like, I think on their website, and they were able to confirm, okay, this was indeed a business. It didn't at first show up when we looked at the business name, but when we searched the address and compared it with the documentation that the field provided, this is how they communicated. So Brie went through, she posted the business card, she at Leslie Slater. Then she submitted another picture at Leslie Slater warehouse, and then told her to go ahead and please allow for a verification call today. That same day, got the call completed, franchise issued, boom. Okay, that's overcoming one hurdle. Another example is one CCS Air. Let's go down to the chatter so you guys can see. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Representative pushed back and said, when I search the Google address, this is coming up. Please advise. This isn't okay. I'm going to go ahead and give you the runaround on this. So this was an old hardware store that got bought out. So what did I first do? I typed in the business name, city, and state. Nothing pops up on Google other than like the Facebook page and Yelp. And I think there was an address that was older when they were finding it on one of these websites. I think it was this one, and it wasn't matching up. So what did I do? I typed in the actual address into Google, and this is what pulled up at home office, right? Cochrane Hardware. This is actually where the new business is operating out of. They just relocated, right? So they're thinking, okay, well, where's the sign? Here's the building. It's not matching up with the 125 paperwork. What's going on? Well, Mr. Keith in the chatter had communicated, unable to validate the business address and phone number. Please provide more information. So what Keith ended up doing is he ended up getting an invoice and he attached it. And this invoice actually is proof CCS Air and Electrical. And that address that I just put into that hardware shows the 336 North 2nd Street. So that was allowed us to get verification started, franchise number approved, and boom, we overcame that one. Okay. And then the very last example that I have is this one right here. Home office said that the address is coming up, two different addresses. So 26204 County Road and then 26208 County Road. So there were two different addresses. And when I went through and Googled just the name of the business, city, and state, there was like the 26204 popped up. Okay. There is another area down here, the government page right here. I'm highlighting 26208. And that was the discrepancy. They're trying to figure out why are there two different addresses. I believe one was the physical and one was the billing when it came down to it. But in this scenario, all they're wanting is just the actual address to reflect on the billing information sheet. And so what she did was she just went ahead and updated the billing information sheet and the address to make sure it matched on the physical address side, just so it's matching up with Google. And boom, that's how we overcame that example. And so just I know, guys, that this is frustrating. And, Shelby did say like they hate having to jump through hurdles just as much as you guys do. It's just really aggravating. But, now there's legal teams that have set these protocols and procedures in place for this. And so, again, just to recap as we close here and before I open up for questions, is before you leave the business, Google the name of the business, city and state. If that's not pulling up accurately as it's showing on your paperwork, then go through and pull up just the address to ensure that the building or whatever facility that pulls up on Google Maps is actually showing what you look at your car window and see. And if it isn't, if it's an older picture with a different business, let's just take a picture right there before you pull out with the new signage to be able to indicate that this business is now located at that physical address. Okay, I'm going to stop, open up for questions, and let you guys hop off. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, recommendations? If you have any recommendations, send them to me in an email. That way I can go ahead and compile them and send them to Shelby because she was more than welcoming to any new ideas or anything that we can do to better the process. But what questions do you guys have?
Hi, Angela. I have a question. Um, and I believe I know the answer. I just want to clarify. So for the roster, you know how we get the roster before we leave with the paperwork, and then we enroll, and they give us a hire date. If the hire date they give us doesn't match the roster, we just redo the roster, correct, to reflect it, or?
So that should be done by verifying with the bookkeeper because you're basically editing an assigned document that they've signed and confirmed off of. So that would be
Okay.
something that we should be doing at the time of enrollment. If we get a different date, we sit down with the customer and the customer's like, yeah, I was hired, a year ago. And the roster says they were just hired 2 months ago. That's when you kind of want to be like, okay, well, hang on, let me go ahead and get your information. Usually there's two people working the enrollment, get that other person to start typing in their information for the no cost benefits. Let's go verify with the bookkeeper. Hey, just want to confirm that, this is the hire date that the employee gave me. Have they been here for that long? Yes. Okay, great. You can edit it there on the roster as long as you've got that approval authorization, but we shouldn't be doing anything unless we've gotten confirmation from a bookkeeper.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
What other questions do you guys have? Alrighty, guys. Well, if there's anything else y'all have, have my number, my email address. Feel free to give me a call. Appreciate y'all's time. I'll send this recording out. And if y'all have a wonderful weekend, y'all be blessed. Bye.
Same to you. Bye bye.